Hey everybody, so in this video I'm going to be showing you how to use all the basic selection tools in Photoshop. Right now I have the Move tool selected, which as we probably already know, it allows you to click and drag photos and move them around the canvas. Where we want to be right now is right below that on the toolbar. It's the marquee tools. When you click and hold down on it, you'll have a little menu. There's the rectangular, the elliptical, single row, single column. I'm going to be using the elliptical. Now first, before we get into anything, let's make sure we're on the right layer. So right now I am on a layer called Fruit, and this is the only image on this layer, so I know that whatever selections I make will not interfere with the rest of the canvas. So the way that this tool works is it allows you to select big areas of one photo. It kind of allows you to crop images. Now this is a big image of kind of like piled up fruit. My goal right now is to almost make it look like I'm looking through a circle window at this photo. The way this tool works is you simply click and drag and it makes a selection for you. However, you might notice that this is not a proportionate circle, but if you hold down Shift on your keyboard, just like most things on Photoshop, that allows you to make a proportionate selection. And I love the positioning of this, so I'm just gonna let go, and there we go. Something kind of cool about this, and actually all of the other selection tools on Photoshop, is that there's this little menu up here which allows you to either add or subtract from a selection. So for example, if I wanted a cool bubbly shape, I could go to the Add to Selection button, and then I could continue adding circles into my selection, and I can have them overlap, right? I can add little ones, I can add big ones, and that just continuously adds to my selections. That looks really awesome. I love it. The next step is to delete the excess, trim the fat. However, I'm not ready to do that yet, because watch what happens if I click delete on my keyboard. See that? It deletes the inside of the selection. So I'm going to undo that, and what we have to do here is we have to go up to the select menu, and then we're going to click inverse. What this does is it inverses your selection. So now, instead of everything inside of those circles being selected, everything besides what's inside of these circles is selected. And now when I click delete, you get a really cool shape out of that. Okay, so I'm all good. Now I'm just going to go up to select, deselect. This is always an important part of using the selection tool, is making sure that when you're done, you deselect. All right, that looks awesome. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to this lovely apple. And let's make sure we're in our correct layer. Now we're kind of going to jump ahead here a little bit. So right now we're in the elliptical marquee tool. I want to jump down actually 2 tools. Usually the magic wand tool is the first one up. Regardless, you can just click W on your keyboard. Hold down on whatever tool is open, and you'll see that there's multiple tools under the key W. Now each of these tools are automatic selection tools, which means that it observes the photo for you to try to guess what you're trying to select. And they're actually pretty good for the most part. They're not my favorite tool, but they do work. Now, the Magic Wand tool is really, really good for selecting solid colors. So let's try that out on this little apple here. Now, we're not going to select the apple, because you'll see what happens is it selects all the similar reds in the apple. What we're going to do instead is we're going to select the white background. And you can see that actually came out really, really well. And in this case, we don't even have to inverse, because this will perfectly delete our white background. Not that you can really see much, but if I hide my background here, you can see that it went from this to this. So now I'm going to deselect this really quick. The only thing that's kind of bothering me is this little shadow down here. So you can fix this a few different ways. You could go down to your eraser tool by clicking the E key on your keyboard, and if you just shrink it down a little bit, you could just clean up those edges. I would never suggest using the eraser tool for big areas, because you can see it gets a little bit choppy. But for that specific instance, it worked out really perfectly. If we go back into that menu, I just want to talk to you a little bit about the other tools in here. So the object selection tool also works really, really well for objects with white backgrounds. Quick selection tool would have worked really well if we were selecting the apple. I can kind of show you an example here. So it selects big areas of the same color, but you can see it's not perfect, but it does kind of correct itself in some ways. So not bad. These are all worth experimenting with for sure. Okay, so now I've deselected that, and I'm gonna move on to this pair. I'm gonna go in the pair layer, and for this one, we're gonna jump back up a little bit. So we were just on the W menu, which is the magic wand tool. You're going to go up to the lasso tool. Now let's go through these. So the lasso tool itself is a freehand selection tool, which means you either have to have a really steady hand or it's going to be a little bit wobbly. So let me kind of show you an example of how the lasso tool works. Pretty much you're just going to click and drag, and it is exactly what I said. It is just a freehand selection tool, which can be good in some senses, but you can see I don't really have a steady hand, so it's not my favorite. So not great. I'm going to undo that. There's luckily different lasso tools that are good for different things. The polygonal lasso tool is one of my favorites. It allows you to select areas using tiny little lines. So just for an example, you can see that I'm making these big straight lines. And then when I'm done, I just double click and it closes up that whole area. I'm going to undo that. Now, the magnetic lasso tool is a fan favorite, I would say, because it's similar to the tools we were just looking at, the magic wand tool and stuff like that, because it analyzes the photo, but it also analyzes your hand. And what I mean by that is, I'm going to zoom in a little bit just so you can see it a little bit better. You trace the area that you're trying to select, and even if you kind of, go off the surface a little bit and mess up, it detects what you're trying to trace. The trick here is to go slow and steady. And you can see it's actually really, really effective. It's not perfect. None of these tools are. The only way to get a perfect selection is by utilizing all the tools together in an effective way. All right, so that's pretty cool, right? So it came out nice. And then, there's always going to be some little edges that you're going to have to fix. So with that, I might go in with my polygonal lasso tool and then go up to my subtract from selection button. And I might just select that area right here. So that fixed that area. It looks like I missed a spot right over here. So now I might go back with my polygonal lasso tool. And select that area. Looks like there's another area that needs a little bit of selecting as well. And honestly, that is probably the most perfect selection that I've seen all day. So now, as we know at this point, we have to select an inverse. Then we can delete our background. All right, and that is how to use the basic selection tools on Photoshop. I encourage you to try all of these out and let me know what your favorite is. See you next time, guys.